folks, what we're going to do is pour another couple of parts here off camera. This is, you know, I showed you, the first part I showed you pouring, I think was the, well, it was the carriage casting. This right here is the cross slide for the Gingery Lathe. Okay, this is you can tell, folks, if you make a mistake on your patterns and stuff, you can tell. Don't ever give up. This right here, see where I added this on the side, that pink? Folks, that's Bondo. And what I did was I mixed it up, I spread it on there, okay, and I just kept piling it up. And then I mixed up a little bit more, put it on there, piled it up. And then I've got my drill press set up to where I can use a router bit and do a little bit of milling. And then I went back and I milled it off flat. Now it's still not perfect. What happened was I got this, I was trying to sand this down flat and I lost my grip on it. I was at the disc sander and I lost my grip on it, and it kind of, yeah, anyway, it messed it up. And it ended up, I really shouldn't have been going about it the way I was anyway. But I put the Bondo on there, and then I put it in my cross. I've got a cross slide or an XY vise for my drill press. And I put it in there, set it up to be flat, and I milled that down nice and flat, both of them, with my with a router bit in my drill press, believe it or not. Just a regular straight router bit. Okay. Anyway, that's the cross slide. This is the part we're going to be shaking out today, and I've also got one of these in the mold. This is the compound. Okay, this is the very top. Now, when this is made in aluminum, what's going to happen is right up here and right up here, this is where you're going to be drilling holes and using the Gingery way is to use the little stepped shank bolt. That it's actually an axle for a lawnmower, one of the plastic wheels on a push lawnmower, and you can take those and you make a tool post, and you'll be threading not this, but the aluminum part that we make from this pattern. Okay, and anyway, this has been painted up with spray lacquer. It's all nice and smooth. The more trouble you go to make a nice smooth finish surface on your patterns, the better finish you're going to have on the finished product. But since I'm just using good old Arkansas River or St. Francis, it's a river in Arkansas near where I live, but it's the St. Francis River sand, I'm not going to have a great finish. But I'm looking for a lathe that I can make my own parts and tools and things out of, or with. I'm not looking for something to win any beauty contest. So anyway, with no further ado, in this flask right here, or this mold, this is what we got in there, and hopefully we got a part in there that looks similar to that. So we're gonna break this bad boy apart real quick. Now my guess is the part is gonna stay in the top half here. Okay. And of course it did, and I'm going to set this down here real quick. I'm going to keep y'all in suspense just a little bit longer. And I'm going to take, now, that's just sand and ground up kitty litter. Clumping kitty litter, which is bentonite clay. You can take and you can buy it by the bag. It's real expensive. Well, it can be expensive, especially if you have to have it shipped. But the easiest way for me to do it was to go up here to the store and buy the clumping type of kitty litter and break the little pellets of bentonite clay in that kitty litter up and mix them with my sand. Just say with bentonite clay you only need to use about a 5% mixed in your clay, but I used more like 10 or 12. I just didn't want to cut no slack. Okay. This is the first time I've used this flask. I just built it a week or so ago. But as you can see, when I made this flask, just to help keep the sand in the flask when you have to roll these flasks over and stuff, I cut these little grooves in the flask here. Can you see them grooves?
Yep.
Now a little bit of sand will stick in there, but that's all right. Before I go to use it again, if it's important, I'll just take a screwdriver or something and get all that out of there. But that's fine. That's all I need right now. Okay, so now here's the this is the coat where our part is. We're gonna give it a shake. Clearly, this is why it's called shaking out your casting, because you literally give it a shake. Okay, I'll put these flasks, when you set them up with these keys like this, you set them up to where they'll only go together one way. And that's so you can line your halves of your mold up good. Once you take your pattern out and you have to go to put them back together, you have to make them line up. Now see if I turn that around. See? That doesn't line up. See there? You can tell right away. But a good idea is, and I haven't done that yet to these, is to take like some spray paint and on one side of the box, both top and bottom, the cope and the drag, take and put a stripe of red or green or black or whatever you got. Just spray paint down the side, and then that way you'll know that you need to, the color of that stripe, you need to match that up. That's how you get them back together. Because if you put these together like I just did backwards, and you've got sand in them, and you're putting your mold back together after you take your pattern out, it'll probably mess up the part line. You're gonna have to do it all over again. So, oh, let's see what we got here. I don't know about you, but the suspense is killing me. The sand that is actually around the part itself, when it gets hot, it kind of lodges in there. I already tell there's going to be a lot of cleaning up needing to be done on this, but I just hope we got a usable part. Ooh, okay, see what we got here. That sand is part that turns black. Over a period of time, all of your sand would end up turning black. Okay? Clean up all that, see all that black? That's all burnt sand and clay. Okay? And you know it's going to need some cleaning up. Got some rough edges here where my parting line was messed up and what have you. But I believe we can clean that up and make that usable. What do you think, bub? Now, this has to have a core, or have a hole in the center of it, and so I had to mold. This is just a piece of 1/2 inch cold roll steel bar, and had to put it in the mold. Okay, and there's another part that's going to be cast later. I'll have to knock that out with a hammer, but there's another part that's going to be molded later that's going to have a piece of this cold rolled steel for a shank, and it's going to sit down on there, and it'll be in between this part and the compound part that we're going to shake out here in a second, and it's going to allow the compound to actually swivel in a circle. Okay, so I believe as long as I don't screw it up trying to clean it up, machining it and what have you, I believe we got a good usable part there. It don't look like much now. These things come out of the mold, they're pretty ugly. I don't have any sink marks. Now see the casting, the carriage casting that I did, it actually had some a sinkhole in the top of it. Luckily I was able to go ahead and use that. Okay, so I got to pick up my mold from out by the foundry and bring it in real quick, and we're going to pause the camera. We'll get back with you. And hopefully we got another good part in there, and we'll show you the shakeout on that here in just a second. We'll be right back with you. Okay folks, we're back. This is our second casting for today. Hopefully, okay, we're going to, again, our actual part is going to stay in the top half. Flip this up. Yes, there you go. You can tell he plays football. He likes hitting things. Don't do it with your hand.
I was about to say.
Just hit that. Hit that. Knock
This
it out.
part?
I don't think you're going to break that aluminum.
I did it. I'm just kidding. This part you
Nah,
cut
stick
off.
it up. I don't think you did it. Anyway, maybe a little flask. I like that. You'll see on this flask, look there. See the keys are made? It won't even go all the way down if you got them backwards. So I take that off and take the top one, give it a 180, and see, then it'll sit down and go back together. Oh, dandy little flask made out of pallet wood. What did I do with my gloves? Here they are. I think I'll use them
just in case, consider it smoking.
Oh yeah, it's hot. It's hot, but it ain't as hot as it was when I poured it. Boy, I'm telling you what. That bad boy was hot. Crucible, that steel, that was made out of a steel gas tank for a MIG welder, a small one. And that little rascal, I'm going to tell you what, it was glowing cherry red. And I think this part's hotter than that other one was.
Which one did you pour first? That one over there? Okay, that's probably why.
Yeah, but I poured it out of the same pot. I only did one melt. So I poured that one, and then I went over to the next mold and poured this one.
Maybe it's because that one's bigger.
It was only like a difference of about 10 or 15 seconds between pouring that one. It could be because this flask that it came out of down there is so much bigger, it got a lot more sand, and there was more cold sand to draw the heat out of the part. Okay, anyway, this is our sprue. It looks like we've got a little bit of a sinkhole area, but it's minor compared to the one that we had in the carriage casting the other day, yesterday. So I can machine that off, hopefully. As long as my old drill press holds up. You're not really supposed to use a drill press for milling, and I can tell that the bearings in my old cheap Ryobi drill press are rumbling already. Well, you know, Gingery says to do all this in the book. He says to do all this scraping and what have you by hand. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love to do all of that because it is a learning experience, my hands just won't hardly let me do it. But anyway, right in here, this is going to be a bearing. I haven't been drinking, folks, I promise. This is a bearing surface here. This is where it's going to ride on a flat piece of metal called way, or ways or whatever, and it's going to be a bearing surface here and here. Now you can see had a little sand breakout and it filled in with mold. This is supposed to be more like this over here. See how that's nice and straight corner there? This is supposed to be the same way. But the good news is that router bit has a 90-degree corner on it, and I can take that on that drill press and I can run through there and just nibble away at that as long as I'm real careful, and I can clean all of that out and make it just like it's supposed to be. So that's the good thing. All this stuff around the edge here. Now if you don't have a way of milling the part, you can take and you can put these parts anywhere you grab a hold of it, get it in your bench vise. And this is aluminum, okay? It's soft. If you've got an old, I don't advise using it if you've got a good set and a bad set. I don't advise using your good set. But I've got a set of Harbor Freight wood chisels, okay? And I can put this in the vise and put that wood chisel up there and use a hammer, and I can knock these little pieces of metal off. I mean, it's not even going to hurt anything for them to be in there. These out here, it'll make them look better once that's all cleaned up. So you know, once that's all cleared up and taken care of, see, we had a little sand wash out of this area here, but we can clean that up as well. No big deal. Okay, there we go. Now, if you're wondering from here, the very next step that you take, once you shake out one of those, the next step you would do with these, or either one of these, is you cut the sprue. See, this one's a bigger part. It has a sprue and a riser. Okay? So you cut those off with a hacksaw. It's aluminum. It cuts very easy. this sprue here, you cut that off with a hacksaw, and then you can, you know, this has to be flat. This is not so critical. Well, it is, because you're going to have a lead screw and a handle that has to work through there to make this slide back and forth. But you can clean it up. If you don't have a way of milling it out like I do, you can use, Gingery says use a file, and use files and wood chisels, you know, to do your scraping. So, okay. Now to do the other part that I was working on yesterday and last night, I don't have that right here with me, but this is 2, 3, okay, I've got the bed and the feet done and the ways. I have the main bed ways onto the bed. Okay, this is actually going to be, the whole thing together is called, I guess, your carriage. And so I guess some people call it the saddle, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, 4 pieces plus all the ball cranks, plus 3 ball cranks, so a total of 7 castings make up the carriage for the legs. And we've got 3 of those. We've got 3 of those cast. There's 1 more to cast, and then we have to come up with some ball cranks of some kind. I'm not real sure just yet how I'm going to do that, because I just don't know. I may try putting some dowel rod to make the little handles for the ball cranks. I may try to put some dowel rod into my drill press and turning it with a file sideways like that to shape the handles and what have you that I need. I just don't know. But anyway, it's a good start. It's a good start, and we're just gonna keep on keeping on. Now I will show you one reason that you make these risers and what have you so tall, and especially when you give it a second one. See inside here? Can you see in there? In there?
Yeah.
See in there? When I poured this, now you can see this one, it didn't sink as much. Okay? But aluminum shrinks as it cools. Okay? You pour it, it takes up an X amount of space when you pour it. But as it cools, it shrinks. So all of this in here in the part, see that? What that did was that's the part, as the aluminum shrunk, it sucked, melted, basically it sucked back, pulled heated aluminum out of the sprue and out of the riser, pulled it back into the part itself. That way you have your sink, whereas we weren't successful in this way with the carriage casting yesterday, okay? We had a sink in our part. Now if you look at this, this is nice and straight. There's no sink, nothing, nowhere, no how, okay? It's just, I mean, it's great. That's because our sink was right here and right here. See how that sunk in? And this one is really deep. That's probably a good, what, 1.5 inches down in there, where that aluminum got pulled back in there. And you want your defect to be here, because you're going to cut this part off, throw it back in the scrap aluminum bucket to melt again the next time. Okay, that's all that's going to happen with that. So you're not worried about a sink defect here. You just don't want it in the part you're going to use, the part. Okay, now the good news is, I guess probably because this is a smaller part, I mean I think there is a touch of a sink right there at the bottom of this sprue. And that's not really, I don't think, called a sink. I think that's called a, actually that could be a sand where sand washed down in there when I poured it, and there was sand there that broke out instead of filling that with aluminum. But anyway, it's nice, and anyway, it's a good part. And so later on we'll get back with you, and I'll try to get some footage showing y'all how I go about cleaning these up and what have you, and start making a, you know, this is a rough casting right here, but I'll get back with you and show you how I make a usable part out of it. And because there's a lot of cleaning up, a lot of filing, a lot of scraping that has to be done on these parts before they actually become part of your machine. But this is a step in the right direction. Two more parts, and then now the part that I made yesterday, I had made once before, that same part, and I'll show you what happened with it. I have it here somewhere. I did have. Here it is. Okay. And as you can see, the first time I got my cross slide, or my XY vise, my cross slide vise, I had that router bit in my drill press, trying to do some milling with it. And here's what happened. With the chuck key, I didn't get the router bit tight enough into my chuck on my drill press. And what happened was, as I was going along here milling this, you can see how progressively my bit got deeper and deeper. It started off, it should have been like this side here. It started off at this height, and then it just slowly slid out as it cut. And you can see right here where I stopped, there's a little step there, and this one was even worse. But this was right here. This was where it, yeah, this is where I decided that the casting was pretty much worthless and I was going to remake it. But I can take these screws and these clamps and these shims off, and this piece of aluminum right here can go right back into the crucible on the next round, and it'll actually become part of the next part. Okay? Anyway, that's what happened. I'm not too proud to, you know, I make mistakes, and I'm not too proud to cover them up or lie about them or anything like that. Making mistakes is part of learning. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And so I just wanted to share that with you. That's a mistake that I made. I'm not telling you to use a router bit or an end mill in your drill press. Okay, it is an unsafe operation. But I am telling you that's what I'm doing because I don't have no choice. I can't do all that filing and scraping. My hands just will not let me do that. Okay, so the good news is if I can get my drill press to do this for me and last long enough, Gingery also has a book that shows how to make your own horizontal milling machine. So if I can get one of those made, I won't have to use my drill press for that no more. But we're working on the lathe first. That's the logical first step. But anyway, I'll get back with you later and show you some steps working on these parts and you know, clean them up and starting to work them into usable machine parts. Okay, and we appreciate y'all watching. I guess I'm gonna cut this off and I'm gonna go ahead and upload this to YouTube so you can give me something to watch, and it'll help. And then I'll just whatever I work on next, I'll make it into another video. Because if you're interested in watching this stuff about this lathe and what have you, this foundry work and stuff that I'm doing at home, it's going to be in steps because I have to do it in steps because it's still February and it might be another month or more before I have dependable weather to where I can just, any day I want to, I can just come out here and work in the foundry because it's outside. It's called, I call it a fair weather foundry because I can only use it when I have fair weather. But we'll get back with you as soon as we can. Thank y'all for watching and God bless.